Welcome back to another podcast. I'm your host, Jeff, brought to you as always with the co-host, the Cuzzo, Dan. How we feeling today?
Feeling great, feeling alive. Obviously, St. Patrick's Day, so we got the green on today to show the support.
Yes. Yep. Got the green Blackhawks one. Brian Campbell, so a little throwback to the, 2010 Hawks. So pretty fun one right there. Weather, it's a little colder out today, but still worth still good to celebrate with, right?
As long as it's not 0 degrees or something out there, it's not terrible. I mean, we could use a little bit of sun. There isn't a ton of sunshine today, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, a little too cold to walk the dogs, but we make it work, right? But also another special guest today, since in honor of our fantasy baseball league. For those who watch on YouTube or on video, you could see that my name's on this trophy three times, and let's make it a fourth this year with in honor of our draft tonight.
Yeah, I saw a picture of that recently, and I didn't comment on it, but I meant to say there's too many Johns and Jeffs on that board. Okay, let's just go ahead and put it out there. I think there's a Kyle and maybe another name or two on there, but it's basically littered with Johns and Jeffs. So maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but we got to get another name or two on that board.
Yeah, I mean, I could change my name on there too. I could put something backwards. Maybe I'll put Strasbasco first on there. Whatever you feel like putting on there for my repeat championship. But there is a lot of talk about dynasty too. A lot of the reporters are asking, what do you think about the dynasty? What do you think about going back to back? And I'm just like, we have to take it one game at a time here. So
Yeah, a lot of reporters asking you these questions. Now, who is reporters wise? Who's been asking you? I mean, do we have Ken Rosenthal showing up here? Do we have you got Bob Nightingale giving you a call at home?
and you those and Jeff Passan, and then my dog Rags, he's asking, we just keep going down the list of people, and we did we're just gonna work it out. So
Yeah, you know what? If you've got Bob Nightingale's number on speed dial, I got to be honest, I'm a little jealous with you.
yeah, then you'd know why I win so much then, because then I get all the breaking news.
Yeah, but the bottom line is we're taking your name off that board this year, right?
Yeah, yeah, we did lose video for you, by the way.
Yeah, I don't. My pops just called me, and I sent it to voicemail. I don't know why.
That's okay. Anyway, we can just keep rolling because that's what we do on the podcast. We just keep rolling. Um, and we could always edit it out later. Anyway, yeah, big draft tonight. Keepers were in on Friday, and we'll see where that goes as the baseball season's fast approaching. But enough about baseball because we have a whole summer to talk about it. Let's touch on NFL free agency. What a week it was last week for NFL free agency. I personally don't think I've seen so much turnover from the running backs to the QB. The QB landing spots was kind of interesting. But I would be remiss to say um, the breaking news last night, Justin Fields getting traded to Pittsburgh for basically a bag of balls. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I saw that last night, and what a way to cap off the St. Patrick's Day celebrations, if you will. But yeah, I saw that like a 6 round pick. I, I mean, we heard some of the rumors the last couple weeks with Fields potentially getting traded, and some of the teams that he was rumored to potentially go to, and then you see that Atlanta signed Kirk, and then you see that Pittsburgh took Russell, and you're thinking,
Right.
okay, well, where's he going now? I mean, we're still trying to move him. Like, what's going on with that? Then he decides to, they decide to, move him to Pittsburgh. Okay, what do I think about that? Justin, I like the guy. He's a good guy, but I don't think we've seen enough of him on a consistent basis for the Bears to have kept him for that fourth year and said, let's run it back. Let's give you another one. Um, I still like the guy. I still wish him all the best. I got nothing, really bad to say about him personally. But
Right.
from a performance standpoint, I mean, you can go, you could look at his win-loss record. You can say, I mean, maybe not all of that's on him, but at some point or another, we got to stop trying to point the fingers and say, consistently week to week, he's not there yet. So
Yeah.
I'm sad, I'm a little sad to see him go, but at the same time, I still think that we've got some good pieces around the team, and I think that if we do end up taking Caleb, hopefully he ends up being the guy, and he's a better fit for the team.
Yeah. With that being said, the pieces around whoever the QB, which it's going to be Caleb now, we can just chalk that up. It'd be a shocking turn of events if it's not. But they did just go out and trade for Keenan Allen as well. So the speculation was there that they could have easily ran it back with Fields for one more season and see what they had. But the problem is then you'd be passing up on another Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. And also, this would be the best situation I think a rookie QB has gone into. I think it might be ever, with having Swift, Keenan Allen now to throw it to DJ Moore. It's hard to say that you could find a different or a better situation immediately to walk into outside of maybe Brock Purdy going to the 49ers, but he wasn't brought in drafted that highly to be the quarterback either.
Yeah, it's you have to like some of the weapons you've got around him if you're a quarterback. DJ Moore, very nice receiver. Keenan Allen, obviously. What can you say about him? As long as he's healthy, I mean, got
That's a
great
key.
hands, great receiver. And Komet has stepped up to, I mean, fantasy wise, he's probably a top 10 tight end. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at all the numbers, but
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at strictly like a year to year or even a dynasty format, I mean, he'd have to be in your top 10 just based off of how thin the QB, or I mean, the tight end room is.
right.
You did have the emergence of Kincaid, Laporta
Hmm.
especially, and then
Yeah.
any of the other guys, Musgrave, Kraft, those guys are outside the top 10, but you still have your Kittles, Andrews, and so on and so forth. But yeah, Komet's good too. I mean, he's got the options. This is going to be one of those situations that Caleb's going to have a very, very, I don't want to say short leash because they have him for 3 years. There's not going to be the excuses. Maybe the first couple games where you're transitioning into a new, the NFL. I think that they're going to rely heavily on the run game, as I said. That'll help open up Keenan Allen more and also DJ Moore. So they gave him targets. I mean, and who knows what they'll do with pick 9, whether they pick, a wide receiver or they end up going defense heavy, which I think everybody hopes they go defense now at this point to add more cushion. But no excuses for him. This is kind of you have to walk in and be that generational talent that everyone's expecting. Because if not, the media is going to rip him a new one. So
I do like the addition of Swift at the running back position, and I'll say this: I don't know how our offensive line is, but that could maybe be another position to maybe think about with the ninth pick, just because I know Fields the last couple of years has been one of, if not the most hit or sacked quarterback in the league. So,
yeah,
the Bears' offensive line has been a work in progress for I don't know how many years, but that could be another thing where, we like you said, we brought Swift in um, with Keenan, Moore, and Komet. You've got a pretty solid group right there of guys to throw to, and a more than solid enough running back. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah, and you
you can
still have
try to get
Roshan
another.
too.
Right, absolutely. You mean you could still try to get another weapon too, or you could, there's a few different ways you could go there. But if the offensive line is lacking like it usually is, why not maybe use a pick there and try to help protect this kid when you've got some solid weapons already?
Yeah, that's all those are possibilities too. We could break down the draft when it happens and maybe even right before on a future podcast. But yeah, you hit it on the head. I mean, offensive line is going to be something that you have to worry about too. You have to build the trenches out. Unfortunately, you have to have a really good QB and build your trenches, and then you can kind of go from there. Because even your defensive line, that's going to be the key. I think that's where they go though, is because the defensive line outside of Montez Sweat. I mean, you're pretty thin there. So we'll see what they end up doing. Um, Anything else you want to touch on Caleb besides the thank you to Justin Fields?
Um, well, hey, you know what? Like you said, I think we should probably just assume that that's going to be the guy. So,
Yep.
um, I know we haven't the draft isn't here yet, but Caleb, welcome to Chicago. We've got a lot of good food here. City's a real nice place, so I think you're gonna like it as long as you perform.
Hopefully future guest on the pod too. So hopefully Caleb you hear this, and hop on.
Oh,
But
we'll get him on the pod.
oh, absolutely. Moving on to the QBs of free agency, like you've touched on, Kirk Cousins went to Atlanta, and that might have been the best spot for him to go. I think his wife is from Atlanta too, so that probably played a huge part in it. But having Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London to throw to, you couldn't have asked for a better offensive landing spot outside of maybe the Bears, like we just said.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, looking at his old team, Minnesota. I mean, maybe Minnesota didn't want to pay him that much, but I mean, you just talked about Atlanta's weapons. He's obviously had a really good thing going there with JJ, and they obviously brought Hawkinson over. We didn't mention him. He's obviously top 10 tight ends. He's probably closer to
Yep.
top five.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
and obviously, they just drafted Jordan Addison last year, and he's already really good just from his first rookie year. So they had, in my opinion, a really great abundance, if you will, of weapons to throw to. But like you said, with Atlanta, Drake London, you know what? He looks like a really good young receiver. So hopefully Kirk and him can build a nice rapport. And Kyle Pitts has not had a quarterback the last couple of years. I think that's really the more interesting option because a lot of people are very high on Kyle Pitts and were coming out of college. And now that you've got a guy who can get you the ball consistently, um, I'm excited to see what he can do. And then obviously for me, I drafted Bijan last year in my other dynasty football league, and I've got Kirk in that league. So but I mean, I might be becoming an Atlanta Falcons fan just right before our very eyes here.
That's okay. I mean, I would probably do that if Caleb flops. I mean, you might have to because if not, the Chicago Bears just got set back 10 years too. But yeah, from a fantasy outlook as well for Kirk Cousins, that's just gonna make Kyle Pitts so much better because he's actually going to get the targets and they're actually going to hit him in the chest or in the hands.
Mhm.
And same thing with Drake London. Both young, really young players that'll finally have their breakouts, regardless, as long as they stay healthy and on the field.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. As long as they stay healthy, for sure. Kirk, I mean, he's not the quarterback that most people want, or especially fantasy wise, want to build around. Especially, he's what like 35. He's
Yeah.
a little bit older now, but you know what? He, assuming he comes back fully from that injury and he's good to go, and Atlanta can protect him this year, um, I see the Falcons being a very interesting team. I mean, offensively, you got to see what you've got with those guys. But yeah, I mean, you got to like with those three skill players, you got to like your chances with London, Pitts, Bijan. They still have Algier, or did they trade him, or did he sign somewhere else?
He's still there.
He's still there. That's what I thought. So, I mean, as far as a running game goes, you're probably not going to get much better than Algier and Bijan. You've got a quarterback now who, like you said, can hit these guys in the chest. So if you're a Falcons fan, you got to be excited for this next year.
Absolutely. Transitioning over to division mate, Baker Mayfield signed for 3 for 100, or re-signed, I should say. I think that's a solid move for the age range of that team. They're all up there in age, and I think after Baker's contract does go, yep, back on camera. Welcome back, Dan. With the age range of Mike Evans re-signing too, and you still have Chris Godwin. I think it was an easy pick, and then basically, if it goes south, they could easily tear it down and trade these guys away. No questions asked, and then try to win the division, but it's gonna be tough with Atlanta. That's for sure. Atlanta is the outright team to beat, I think, in my opinion.
Tampa, though, with bringing Baker and Evans back, I mean, they obviously had to do both of those. Baker coming off of that a career year for himself, over 4,000 yards, 28 TDs. Um, if he does that again, that contract's going to look really good. for
Yeah.
Tampa. So, um, Baker still has his guy in Evans to throw to. We'll see. Todd Bowles is the head coach over there. He looks like he's done a nice job the last few years. So, we'll see how they do again. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting division for sure. Tampa got going at the end of last year. They got hot, and then they ended up upsetting Philly, I believe, in the
Yep.
playoffs when Philly was. You had Tampa going like this, and you had Philly going like this. So um, they're an interesting team. I don't think they're a Super Bowl favorite to start the year, but they're definitely a team that if they get hot at the right time, they've got enough pieces over there where they could be an interesting team for sure.
At least on offense. Defensively, they lost a lot of. I think they
Yeah.
lost all three linebackers, or they brought back one of them out of the out of the three, and then they still have Antoine Winfield. So they got some work to do on the defensive end, but we'll see what happens. You know, we kind of briefly touched on it, but Pittsburgh might be moving in the correct direction when it comes to the quarterback room because you have Russ signed for a year for less than $2 million a year. And then you still have Justin Fields, who you just got as a backup, who probably is the best backup now you can say in the NFL. Um, to learn a year to sit in a whole new system and overall just kind of absorb what Russ does and do either the opposite of what he does or learn. I mean, you're going in with Mike Tomlin. They're probably going to have to go get some wide receivers besides George Pickens. But that being said, that might be the best situation that they just got quarterbacks for for very, very cheaply.
Yeah, that's another interesting one. I like the move for both Fields too, because now he's got, like you said, he's got an option to sit on the bench and see the game from you know the from the bench, literally from the sidelines. He can see what Russell's been doing. I mean, this guy's won a Super Bowl. He's had a bunch of really good years in the league. Obviously, the last couple of years have left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But I think for Fields to sit there and kind of see what Russell is seeing as these plays develop, I think it can only benefit him. He's still obviously very young, and like you said with Tomlin over there, I mean, my goodness,
The
he's
best coach, arguably the best coach in the NFL. Oh, okay, no, can't say that. Can't say that. Andy Reid's the best in the NFL right now. I'd put Tomlin in the top three conversation, but that'd be a guy you'd want to
e-
play for.
easily because I mean Tomlin's one of I don't know. I saw the stat recently, but I don't think he's ever had a losing season as a head coach. That to me
Yeah,
almost speaks more volumes than Andy Reid having his match made in heaven with Patrick Mahomes. I mean,
yeah,
Tomlin the last couple of years ever since. I mean, even the last year or two with Big Ben, he wasn't slinging it like he was when he was a younger lad,
yeah,
if you will. So,
yeah. That was
you know,
brutal.
the last few years for Tomlin, he's had to scrape and claw, and you're still finding a way to not have a losing season. That is a man's man right there. I wish the Bears would have been able to lure him over here. Now, obviously, that's just a
Yeah.
pipe dream. If you're Mike Tomlin, why the heck would you ever want to come to the Bears? But
You
I
never
mean,
know. Yeah, it's kind of funny how that ended up turning out because that was a rumor mill too, was that they were
yeah,
going to fire Eberflus, go get Mike Tomlin. He was going to pair with Justin Fields for the foreseeable future. They were going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. and everything, I don't know. Uh, yes, you could have easily taken him with 1-1 too, but there was no the Bears were never going to do that. I think the decision was made after Fields was done this year. I think it was pretty simple. Um yeah, we'll see what Pittsburgh ends up doing. I don't think they win the division, even though their defense is pretty good year in and year out. But because you have to go through Baltimore, you still have to go through Cincinnati. So, and Cleveland's not no one to shake off either. So, tough division to play in, unfortunately. So, we'll see what Russ and company do. And then real quickly, we'll run through some of the other QB signings real quick. We got Gardner Minshew going to Vegas for 2 for 25. Sam Darnold going to Minnesota on a 1 year deal, and then Drew Lock going to the Giants, and then last but not least, Tyrod Taylor going to the Jets to back up Rodgers. Um, before I pass it over to you, um, I think that Minnesota is going to trade up and get a quarterback as well, and I think it's going to be JJ McCarthy, just like I said. And they'll try to pair him with Jefferson, or they'll trade Jefferson. It'll be one or the other. So we'll see.
That's an interesting theory there. I could see that. Just from the last three or four guys you mentioned there, Minshew is more than a reliable, solid quarterback, and having him go to Vegas, I mean, you know, this this past week has just been we already said it's been nuts, but just looking at all these guys that have signed, not just the quarterbacks, but some of the running backs, even a couple of the receivers too. It's shaping up to be quite an interesting season. Some of these teams that, Atlanta wasn't great last year. I mean, they were a little bit better, but now that, no offense to Desmond Ritter, but there's probably guys that are naturally right-handed who could do better with their left hand in the league, right?
Yeah,
And now you've got a legit quarterback over there. I mean, for me, just to Josh Jacobs is an interesting one, right? Green Bay lost Aaron Jones. They let him kind of go somewhere else. That was a tough decision for them. And what does Green Bay do? They say, okay, we'll go grab Josh Jacobs for a couple of years. I mean,
You know what's funny too is they signed him to the same exact deal that they signed Aaron Jones to. Literally like 4 years for 48, which is just great. What they do up there is just insane. Yeah, moving into the RBs though. Yeah, like you touched on, Jacobs going to a younger version, basically a better version of Aaron Jones, that they're going to run him into the ground. It's going to be hard to not take him in fantasy and put him in your top 10 running back conversation just because there's so many good ones. Um, I mean, he's the only guy there. I mean, AJ Dillon did resign, but I don't think he isn't going to be touching any of his targets. Um, you know, on the opposite side, Aaron Jones left to go to Minnesota, which is wild. I was not expecting him to go there. I mean, I knew they needed a running back, but what do you think his outlook's going to be in Minnesota?
well, like you said with Jacobs, I mean, if you were Minnesota, why wouldn't you want to run him? You know what I mean? Minnesota, the last time they had, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time they had a big time back was probably Peterson, right? And Adrian Peterson was, I mean, one of the best in the league at the time. And now you've got Aaron Jones when healthy. He's kind of in that conversation, So, um, especially too with Minnesota. Who did you say went over there for
Uh,
quarterback?
Sam Darnold, and I here's the thing: this is going to be the best surrounding cast that Sam Darnold has ever had. Um, it's going to be an interesting transition year. I do think they draft a quarterback at some point, whether it's JJ or somebody else, and they sit him a year and then he jumps in and is the guy next year. If not, they will go out and find someone in free agency or trade for him, probably. But that being said, I think he will run an offense with Kevin O'Connell, and it'll be very similar to what you see with Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I think especially having like a Darnold, if he's going to be the guy running the offense for this year or the majority of it or whatever, or even a rookie. You have to assume when you go out and get a back like Aaron Jones, he's going to be, they're going to use him a lot too. So I would assume, like, as long as he stays healthy, that he should be getting 20, 25 touches a game. I mean, easy.
Really.
So,
Yeah.
but I agree with you too. Darnold for sure. I mean, with that supporting cast, we already touched on that with Jefferson, Hawkinson, and Addison, and now you got Aaron Jones, like you said. So
The offense is there.
Minnesota's yeah, they're a very interesting team, especially offensively, like they were last year. But with Darnold at the quarterback, if he's like I said, if he's going to be the guy this year, he looked all right towards the end of the last season with Carolina. But I don't know if anybody has real high expectations for him this year. So I guess that's going to be another team to watch this year.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just a homer with when it comes to USC quarterbacks, but I think Darnold got the shaft in the last two teams he was with outside of San Francisco. But we'll see. One of the one of I don't know if it was a writer or a former player said that Sam Darnold throws one of the best balls that he's seen in the 49er history. So, move over Joe Montana, move over Steve Young, enter Sam Darnold, who didn't even start. So says a lot about it, but who knows? Moving into another really big RB signing was Saquon going to Philly. I This is my initial reaction. That bumps him up the fantasy football boards as well. I think he goes around sixth now, up in my top 10 dynasty rankings at least, and in my overall running back rankings. It was like 3 years for like 37. I bet he plays about two of it depending on his health. But you're putting him in a system that DeAndre Swift looked amazing in. And I think, yes, it is a Kellen Moore run offense, but I do think that they will utilize him. And this is the best quarterback and wide receivers. And you could throw a tight end in there and offensive line. Just best offense across the board that Saquon's ever played with. So he immediately gets a bump because they're gonna, and that bumps up the other guys too. AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. Those guys are going to get more targets because the teams are going to be afraid that Saquon's either going to break one on him or he's going to get out of the backfield and they won't be able to stop it. So Philly has a very, very big chance to be insane.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty rare when you see a team like Philly. I mean, they were great last year. Obviously, towards the end of the season, didn't look great. Obviously, you lose an upset in the playoffs, but then in the off season, you find a way to upgrade at the running back position with a quarterback like Hurts, like you said, with all the other weapons they have. You'd have to expect a big year from Saquon for sure. Like you said, he had to have moved up in the running back rankings, and he's already one of the best backs in the league when he's out there and he's healthy. So for someone like him to go to a team like that, I mean, you have to, if you're a Philly fan, I mean, you're rejoicing right now.
That's a wet dream for them right there. I think the only we'll play devil's advocate. The only way it doesn't work is that Saquon, Philly somehow runs that offense into the ground. They don't bounce back after last year. They have to trade AJ Brown because something like on the sideline he's not getting along with the team, and the coaching staff too. But I have a hard time believing that's going to happen. Even with the tush push, once again, okay, so we're talking instead of maybe 12 touchdowns for Saquon, he ends up with 8. That's still RB1 numbers as long as he goes for 1,200 yards, which he will.
Yeah, as long as he's healthy, right? I mean, and honestly, I mean, I don't think it would be a stretch to have him go well beyond those numbers, right? I mean,
100%.
we could see his career year this year with Philly. So
Absolutely. And if he's healthy, he's there. What did you think about Tony Pollard going to Tennessee for 3 for 24?
to replace King Henry,
Yeah.
now,
Big shoes to fill.
yeah, King shoes. I mean,
It's a Yeti.
um,
It's a Yeti shoes you have to fill.
I like DP. I like Pollard. I'm a little surprised. I know that, when running backs get up there in age, people tend to shy away from that. I get it. But with how good King Henry's been, I'm almost, to be honest with you, I'm a little surprised. I know they have that young kid Spears.
Yes.
They like him a lot. They think he's going to be one of the next big guys. So okay, but you let him go. King Henry signed a 2-year deal, 16 million with Baltimore. So first of all, that looks like, I mean, for Lamar, just to go off topic real quick, Baltimore is going to be better next year. I
Yeah.
mean, now you're telling Lamar you don't have to throw the ball. He can throw the ball probably 10 times less this year. Lamar's still going to run it a few times. He's still going to have
Yep.
Mark Andrews and a couple other guys to throw it to. And now you're going to have King Henry to slide in there as a big time back, the best running back they've ever had. He's had.
Yeah.
Baltimore just got a lot scarier. But going back to Pollard with Tennessee, I like the signing for Pollard's sake. I don't really know what to think with Tennessee this year. I don't think Tennessee is expected to do much, but I like the deal for him. And Tennessee has, like I said, they've got him and they've got that young kid Spears, so they should have a decent running game.
Yeah. Do you put him in top 12 back, or do you think he falls out of the top and falls into like the top 18 to 20 range now? Tony
Depends on
Pollard.
how much they're going to. Depends on how much they're going to use Spears, right? I mean, if they try to get Spears some more carries this year, I could see Pollard falling out of the top 15.
Yeah, I also do think this benefits him having that 1B. I don't think Pollard, as good as he is, I don't think he is that alpha I think he's a
Yeah.
1A, 1B situation, kind of like he was with Zeke. I do think that you're going to see Spears, and Spears would still be one of my buys. And we'll get into that right before the fantasy season starts. Well, our buys and sells and, guys that we think are going to have a huge year. But I think both of them will do well. It ultimately falls on Will Levis, too. And like you said, Tennessee is an unknown team. The reason they moved on from Henry was because they don't really. Yes, he's great and he would carry the load, but they were aiming into being a kind of a rebuild team. But moving on to their signing, they signed Calvin Ridley, which we'll break down a little bit later. But just some of their moves are very questionable, and brand new coach in there, none of his guys. So I mean, we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, I think he falls into the top 20 range. Him and Spears will be kind of, they'll be serviceable for fantasy, absolutely. But breaking down, yeah, moving fully into the Baltimore topic, like you said, my goodness, that team is going to be unstoppable. To break down the numbers, did you know what Gus Edwards did last year?
No, I don't.
It
Couldn't
was
tell you.
close. I think he had like 800 plus rushing yards and close to like 13 touchdowns. All were within. I think there was only one rushing touchdown that was outside of like 8 yards. I think, give or take, if anyone wants to fact check me on that one, but I thought I saw a statistic that like all of his touchdowns were within the five. I mean, you can't beat. Henry is going to run all over everybody because that division defensively, Pittsburgh, yes, they're good, but that's not going to stop Henry. I mean, it's that offense is going to be very, very tough to beat. I think they're going to be in my top two when it comes to projections.
I think Lamar was quoted this past year as saying that he felt like it was this year or bust for Baltimore, and they had a good year. But if I were him, I mean, he probably didn't have a crystal ball, and he didn't know that they were going to go out and get King Henry. But if I were him, I'd say that this next season is probably going to be Super Bowl or bust for them because, like you said, I that that offense is already really good. I'm not the personally, I'm not the biggest Lamar Jackson fan, but he's proved basically everyone wrong. He's been
Yeah.
very good, and now you're adding a legit running back with him. And yeah, that offense is. Let's put it this way: Baltimore is not going to be a team that you want to play next year.
No, absolutely not. And if they get home field advantage again, they'll be even more tough. Yeah, Lamar is dynasty QB rank always fluctuates for me. Because I always go Josh Allen 1 and then Mahomes is a 1B. But like, this past season he didn't have the weapons, so he did drop down a tad. And when I mean a tad, I think he fell to 3. I mean, Lamar flirts with the second overall QB you want on your team, real life and in fantasy when he's healthy. And then, sometimes with the emergence of CJ Stroud, if Joe Burrow comes back and, Jalen Hurts, we're talking a glob of really good quarterbacks, and it's fun to watch. It'll be a shame though if Mahomes goes on these like runs and doesn't let anyone else win. But I would love to see Lamar get a ring because he deserves it more than anybody for sure. Um,
Well, he very well may get one this year.
yeah, absolutely. Running through it, the next three, Eckler went to Washington for 2 years. Swift 3 for 24 to Chicago. We kind of already touched on him. Singletary's replacing Barkley in New York, and then Joe Mixon went to Houston. My initial reaction is Joe Mixon going to Houston is going to make them tremendously better because they got that running workhorse running back that they are going to run into the ground. And I think he's only 27. So they'll have him until his age 30 season and then send him off into the sunset. That's going to be my team that I think will break out this year with CJ Stroud. And Tank Dell across the board, that team is just insane. Once again, their fantasy values have skyrocketed, and you know the amount of like picks and players you'd have to do to acquire any of those is insane as well. But in the real life standpoint, Mixon going to Houston is going to be probably around a top 10 back as well.
I agree. I think Houston is definitely one of those scary teams to certainly look out for this year, and it looks like they got even better with Mixon. The one thing that jumps off the page to me is Austin Eckler going to Washington? Now, my one buddy Brennan is a Washington Commanders diehard,
Oh,
and
geez.
I'm sure he likes that move. But more importantly for me, I'm looking at the Chargers. You've got a franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert who fractured, I think, a finger on both hands last year. And
Yep.
who is he going to throw? Who's he going to throw to? The ghosts of these people. They've
Quentin,
let Keenan
Quentin
Allen go.
Johnston. Quentin
Mike,
Johnson, Joshua Palmer.
you know what? Johnston still hasn't done much in the league, so I like him, but we'll see what he does this year. He's going to be the guy. It looks like. Keenan's gone. They cut Mike Williams. Gerald Everett wasn't that great, but he's gone. And Austin Eckler, who would catch you 5, 6, 7 passes a game or more, is gone. So,
Yeah.
what are the Chargers doing with their franchise quarterback? What I mean, who's he going to throw the ball to other than like you said? I mean, you mentioned Quentin Johnston and Joshua Palmer. Who else do they have? And are those
Uh,
household names?
Gus Edwards, as we brought him up.
Oh,
They
there we go.
so
We got
they are going to change that. Harbaugh is going to change that team around. With all honesty, I know there's a lot of rumors going around.
clearly.
They will move on from Herbert and trade him to Minnesota for the 2 first-round picks that they just had, but that's not going to happen. But I also think with their pick, they either pick Bowers or they're going to go after Malik Neighbors, which that would be my pick, and that'd be a great landing spot for them. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, they have their elite quarterback and they let everybody go. I mean, granted, those guys were all kind of getting up there in age. So you have to turn it over. You do. So we'll see what Johnston has. Would you buy a dip in Justin Herbert now that you brought him up?
And honestly, that's kind of been my guy in fantasy the last couple of years. Ever since the team doctors almost killed Tyrod Taylor a couple of years ago with his lung,
Yeah.
and they had to start Herbert. I picked him up after he had that good week or whatever, and ever since then I've just been like, that's kind of my guy. But
Yeah, I like the West Coast teams. I like the West Coast teams in general. So I caught him a lot of Oregon games. So he looked good there too.
he's you know what? Yes, but he's also 6'5", 6'6". I mean, if I could guy crush for a second, the guy is unfreaking believable. Not only okay, you know what? No homo, right? He's a good looking guy, right? 6'5", 6'6", can throw the ball about 100 yards. Um, he's got speed from that. I mean,
Oh,
usually it takes more than one guy to bring him down. He does a little bit of everything for you. He's Josh
absolutely.
Allen, and everybody wants Josh Allen. The problem is Allen's got people to throw to, and
Does he anymore though?
does he still have Diggs?
As of right now, I think.
Well, he's got Kincaid too.
Yeah, and
I like Kincaid.
yeah, me too. But yeah, like you were saying, yeah, Herbert is your prototypical quarterback, and you could build around him. So it's all up to Jim Harbaugh and see what he wants to do. I think Greg Roman's going to run the hell out of it, though.
Well, if it were me, I mean, you've actually got the guy, which a lot of organizations don't have in
Yep.
Herbert. So you've got him. But yeah, like you said, some of those guys, yeah, they're getting up there in age. Mike Williams, I like him a lot, but the dude just can't stay healthy. So
Uh,
I understand it, but it's like they let almost all their guys go. So we'll see what they do if they like you said, if they go out and get a top receiver option or potentially even Bowers is the best tight end coming out. They could be interesting. Obviously, they need more than just a couple guys for Herbert to throw to over there. But yeah, I mean, I found that interesting. I mean, it's like who the hell is this guy going to throw to?
Nobody. It's going to be an interesting. We'll see if Johnston, bounces back as well because he was horrible. He just he uses his chest to catch the ball, which is just not prototypical for and good for your wide receiver. Um, yeah, and he'll be using Gus Edwards. But what do you think, Austin Eckler, moving back to your Commanders over there? What do you think that they're gonna? I mean, that was an odd signing. I mean, they have Brian Robinson, who always looks like he's running through sand. Um, and it's kind of funny because he had a I think it was top 6 RB finish last year for fantasy, I think. Or it was like right before he got hurt he was, but he was in the top 10 for fantasy points, which is wild to me.
Yeah, and I think Washington didn't they just trade Sam Howell?
They did.
So I don't even know who their backup is. I mean, I don't know who their
They're drafting a quarterback. They are very high on either Jaden Daniels or they will be going after Drake May. It's one or the
Drake
other.
May.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're gonna roll with the rookie this year. Okay, but yeah, I felt like the Eckler signing. I mean, there's been a few signings where you just like you kind of scratch your head a little bit, but yeah, that one. I mean, it's like what does Washington realistically think they're going to do this year? You got a rookie quarterback. The Eagles are in their division, right? Along with the Cowboys. I mean, they've got a tough division. I mean, I that one definitely made me scratch my head a little bit.
Yeah. And then we could briefly touch on everybody's favorite Cowboys too. What have they done? Signed Eric Kendricks, linebacker. That's it. Nothing else.
Jerry Jones, he thinks he's got his team apparently.
Yeah, and he was all in too. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. So, um, moving into the wide receivers, um, Mike Evans re-signed with the Bucks. We touched on that. I think he's Mr. 1000 again. He'll be pretty flexible. Um, T. Higgins got franchise tagged, but he's demanding a trade. We'll see where that ends up. Actually, ends up having to play in Cincinnati. And then Michael Pittman re-signed with the Colts, which only adds to his value. Good for him. Former USC Trojan, wide receiver U, as I like to call it. Um, one of those spots that Anthony Richardson, if he plays to his caliber, the Colts are going to be skyrocketing, and they're doing it at a right time.
Yeah, Richardson looked pretty good. I didn't know much about him coming out last year, but he looked pretty good his first few games, and then he got a little banged up and had to call it a season. But his thing's going to obviously be staying healthy, and Pittman is coming off a nice year, so that one is definitely an interesting signing. I mean, if you're Richardson, you've got a guy to throw to over there. I
Yeah.
don't know who else they have. Who else do the Colts have as their top options to throw to?
Josh Downs, and then they will run the hell out of the ball with a JT.
That's right. Yeah, I mean,
The, their biggest
Josh
problem,
Downs.
their biggest
Good.
problem is they have to face Houston, and Houston's got defense got a lot better. They got Daniil Hunter. They got a bunch of other options on defense that just makes them so much tougher too.
The Colts, though, if I'm not mistaken, they won 8 or 9 games last year, and I mean, I don't know if they were really expected to be that great with a rookie quarterback. And then when he went down, he had Minshew, I think, play the rest of the year, and he did well. Obviously, they have other pieces. Um, on both sides of the ball. They've got a solid enough team. So I think, like you said, if they have a decent enough quarterback, that's a team that could surprise a lot of people. They surprised me last year, winning almost
Yeah.
10 games. I don't know, 8 or 9, whatever.
Yeah, if Richardson's healthy, that's a team to beat. But I mean, Houston's still going to be my pick for that division.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't the Colts play the Texans right at the end of the year, and both teams had their playoff implications? And I think Houston won, and then we
Yeah.
all know they won. And yeah,
Yep, you
so
got
I
it.
mean, you never know with the Colts. I mean, like we said, if Richardson stays healthy, they could be pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Running through it, Hollywood Brown signed with the the Chiefs, not the Colts. He signed with the Chiefs for a 1-year deal. Calvin Ridley, 4 for 92 to Tennessee. Darnell Mooney to Atlanta for three years, and then Gabe Davis for 3 for 39 to Jacksonville. Um, biggest standout, and he's going to be an overbuy for so many people, is Hollywood Brown. Um, he's a good wide receiver. I'm not going to give him any problems with that. And he's going with the best quarterback in the NFL for a real standpoint. The problem will be him staying healthy and catching the ball. He's dropped so many balls, and I feel like Kyler made him look really, really good too. And he had his opportunities with Lamar, and now he's going to the best QB in the league, and we'll see what he does. I could see him scoring around 8 touchdowns, being one of those like fringe wide receiver twos that you could plug into your lineup.
Absolutely. I just off some of the guys that you mentioned, I think we touched on the Calvin Ridley, or we might have at least mentioned it. I mean, That to me seems like another one of those, going to Tennessee, 4-year, $92 million for this guy. I that's another one of those like, all right,
with
what were we thinking
Hopkins.
there?
I think they are trying to go all in and see what they have with Will Levis. If he has that 4 touchdown game like he did with Hopkins last year, I think that, which I sold him right after that in the dynasty, in one of the dynasty leagues I'm in, traded him right away, right after that. That being said, they're seeing what they have with Will. I think that this is a prove it year for him. No excuses with the weapons he has, and if it just goes downhill, it's going to be one of those things that they have to find a new QB.
Agreed. And then the Darnell Mooney, 3 years, 39 million. I mean, that was another one where, I mean, eh, I don't know what Mooney's done in the NFL for him to get about $40 million, but you're going to tell me, maybe I'm old school. I would have paid King Henry $39 million, and Mooney gets. I mean, what did Henry get? 16. Yeah, I
16.
would have switched. I would have probably switched those contracts. I don't know how Mooney got $40 million.
There is a couple clips I saw on Twitter that, or X, whatever you want to call it now, that Mooney had a lot of good separation and he could burn these corners. It was, I really hate to dump on Fields, but where Fields overthrew him or whoever the QB at the time was overthrew Mooney. And we'll see what Kirk does because Kirk is a reliable, and as long as it's not on national television, he's a good, QB. It's a good landing spot for him. I will say that he could. I don't know if he's a slot wide receiver. That I don't know, unfortunately. But if he could stretch the field for him, and that's going to open up London more in the run game. So, good landing spot. I will say that. Good for him.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other signing too. I think we've already talked about this one, but from a tight end perspective, Dalton Schultz re-signed with Houston. I don't know, that was a week or a couple weeks ago, but
Yeah.
that's another one that I like too, with him coming back with Stroud and all them.
Yeah, it's gonna be another building year, and who knows what they might add to that offense through the draft as well, which is great. Good for Houston to really re-sign Schultz. That is gonna be the safety net for across the middle of the field for CJ Stroud, and then you still have Tank Dell and then Nico Collins. So I would expect them to either go sign an Odell Beckham or draft just another rookie wide receiver. There's plenty of them in this draft, which we'll break down another podcast. Um, yeah, I think him getting 3 years, so through his age 30 season, will be great for him. Another re-signing was Hunter Henry, signed for 3 for 27, stay in New England. He'll help out the rookie quarterback that goes there. Um, Noah Fant re-signed with Seattle, 2 for 21. Gerald Everett, we touched on him. He'll be no slouch in Chicago. Maybe we'll say he scores 2 touchdowns. We're not gonna be bold with him. Komet's still the guy there. It's gonna be that double wide tight end situation. He slides out and gets a touchdown. But one that stood out to me is Mike Gesicki to Cincinnati for 1 year. Is this the year that Burrow starts feeding the middle of the field to a tight end? This might have been the best landing spot. I had this idea that Mike Gesicki from his days in the Dolphins, after he was a free agent, he was going to go to the Chiefs and replace Travis Kelce after Travis retires. Not going to beat him in competition, even when Kelsey's on his last legs. I think that would have been a perfect landing spot. But this one, pretty good because if Higgins is gone, Burrow is going to need somebody to throw to outside of Chase.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting spot. I That was one of those signings where I didn't put a ton of stock into it, but it's definitely one where, I mean, we've seen some good moments or flashes from Gasecki. I mean, he's a more than an interesting option there at the tight end, and obviously going to Cincinnati as long as Burrow can stay healthy this year. I mean, like you said, right? Can he start feeding the middle of the field? Why not, right?
Yeah, now he has the big body, big athletic body to do it. Just gonna real quickly run through some of my losers for free agency. Vegas, yes, they paid a ton of money for Christian Wilkins. That defense is gonna be scary. That defensive line with Max Crosby. But they're trying to win, I guess, and they brought in Gardner Minshew. You know, it, they said Aiden O'Connell's still their guy. I don't believe it. I bet you Minshew beats him out in preseason. Um, Dolphins, yeah, they went and got Jordan Brooks and Anthony Walker, but they lost the middle of their line with Christian Wilkins. But they did get a band-aid fix in Shaq Barrett on the outside. So that's two of kind of my not great teams outside of the Cowboys, which we touched on them earlier.
Yeah, the Cowboys, like you said, outside of what was it, Hendricks, they've done nothing. I mean, they're probably the team that's done. They've just stood still and done nothing.
Yeah, and I think they're trying to rework Dak's deal because Dak is getting like 40 to 50 million dollars in between that range, 40 to 50 million dollars alone this year. So that hurts their cap. Um, you know, I'm interested to see also what Arizona does because if Marvin Harrison falls to 4, that gives them the weapon, but their team is just, they need a lot of work and they have a ton of picks. So, but like they surround Kyler Murray, they got to help him out, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That obviously that's the problem with the NFL. It's like, when you're a team that needs that much help, where do you go, right? You start with the O line to protect your quarterback because you think Kyler's the guy, maybe. Do you try to go out and get a guy to rush and get the other quarterback? Maybe you do that. Or maybe, his number one option, Hollywood Brown, is gone now, right? So
Yeah.
maybe you go out there and you get a future number one option for Kyler. But yeah, like you said, Arizona is one of those teams that definitely needs a lot. So very interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to say like the rich got richer and the poor got poorer this free agency, and at least the Bears made the moves. Whether they're going to end up turning out being good or bad, that's still to be said. But they're surrounding Caleb now. So, that being said, any closing thoughts on NFL free agency?
Well, it looks like the Bears are giving it their all, or are trying this year. So I guess I guess we'll see what that means.
Yeah, you still have some holes like some Swiss cheese, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Oh yeah, I forgot
Absolutely.
to mention my Jets. My closing thought: my Jets did go out and revamp their entire offensive line. They went out and signed old man Tyron Smith to a deal. I think a couple year deal, maybe a 1 year deal. So hats off to JD for revamping that line. Hopefully, Rodgers stays healthy and doesn't get smashed like he did last year. So we'll see. They're also rumored to get Mike Williams.
Jets, 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 Jets.
There you go. And I think on that note, we will close it out there. As Dan likes to say,
I
well,
think you're going to like us.